for me not to be doing this, because when we were producing Mountain Echoes, I was constantly on tenterhooks for every session.
Live on YouTube right now.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock.
For me not to be doing this, because when we were
Share the link in a group.
producing Mountain Echoes,
Congress.
I was constantly on tenterhooks for every session.
What's happening?
Live on YouTube right now.
Okay.
Why is the voice echoing?
It's 6 o'clock.
For me not to be doing this, because when we were
Share the link in a group.
producing Mountain Echoes,
Congress.
I was constantly on tenterhooks.
Has Bijoy, has he joined?
You can start now. I'm admitting all the participants.
Okay, I think Bijoy has to join, and then we can start.
Bijoya is here. I think Bijoya is here.
Yeah, but Bijoy.
Bijoy
Singh.
Tanjam. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just trying to get in touch with him.
I think we can start.
Yeah. I think
Yes,
so.
we can
Yes,
start.
we
I'll get
can.
in touch with him. Yeah.
Okay. So, all righty, we're starting then. So our honorable guest speaker for today, Mita Kapoor. I have dropped the ma'am. Respected members of the Northeast Writers Forum, well-wishers and friends, a very good evening to you all. My name is Elika, and I will be moderating the session this evening, which is titled Pen to Print, Bridging the Literary Distance. We have with us Mita Kapoor in conversation with Bijoya Sawyang, Juliana Faume, and Dr. Gumlat Ong Mayo. As we progress with our conversations, I would like to request the participants to feel free to use the chat box for questions or comments to our speakers. Before we begin, as is the tradition, I invite Dipanjal Deka, the Secretary of NEWF, to deliver his preliminary remarks.
Thank you, Elika. Good to see all of you. Very good evening, dear members and participants. I hope you are all COVID safe and in good health. Well, these are very tough times, and people have suffered in so many ways, whether monetarily, mentally, or physically, because of the pandemic. But like I always say, we are men and women of literature, and we will transcend these dark days as we have always transcended all man-made boundaries through our books. As a matter of fact, ironically so, that Northeast Writers Forum had found ways to make best use of the lockdown and social distancing through a series of webinars. We decided to go above the physical barriers and hold a series of web talks with eminent authors and poets, and also hold a series of workshops on fiction writing, poetry, and drama. My inference to the pandemic is to highlight the point that businesses, industry, and all kinds of ventures suffer. People in industry are rather fighting for survival, trying to adapt to the new normal. Everything depends on the economics, and the literary world is no different. The publishing industry also got hit by the pandemic restrictions and lockdown. And as you know, every author's dream is to usually to publish, and when the works get rejected or it's declined by a publishing house, they usually get disheartened and demotivated, as they assume that the work is not up to mark, or it's their fault rather. Currently, the market forces are playing havoc with the publishing industry. But instead of me speaking about it, we have amongst us today one of the leading top-notch literary agents in the country. On behalf of the Northeast Writers Forum, I extend a very hearty welcome to Ms. Mita Kapoor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Even though she needs no introduction, her formal introduction will be read out by the moderator once I hand over the proceedings to her. In fact, if you have to literally list out all her achievements, we'll need a separate webinar for that. But for the benefit of our illustrious guest, Ms. Kapoor, I'd like to say a few words about the forum. The Northeast Writers Forum was formed by a few visionary men and women with a love for literature and has waded and evolved over the times. And we have stepped into the 25th year. in the course of this momentous journey, we have got the privilege, or rather honor, I can say rather, that a few of our members have been awarded distinguished awards like the Padma Shri, Sahitya Academy, and Katha, amongst others. And if God and pandemic willing, we hope to celebrate this glorious achievement in a very befitting manner this year or maybe the next. We hope you would be amongst us during that time, like everything comes to normal. We can only hope, I'd also like to say that, that I believe literature has evolved from the various mythical and traditional folk tales and stories. Northeast is a land of numerous tribes, or rather 350 plus tribes, and sub-tribes, with as many languages, And you can imagine what a treasure trove this particular area is. And we got such a rich literary potential. And like I said, literary agent, I hope that this webinar would be mutually beneficial for both you and me. Along with her, we have also with us 3 authors from 3 different states of the Northeast. We have Ms. Sawan from the abode of the clouds, Meghalaya, Dr. Gumlad Miao from the state where the sun rises first, like Arunachal Pradesh, and Juliana Fumai from the land of the largest freshwater lake, like Loktak, and one very, I do birding, so one very endangered animal species, the Shanghai deer, says from Manipur. And without wasting any more much time, like I hand over the proceedings to Elika. Elika, kindly take over. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dipanjal. I would now like to introduce the Vice President of NEWF, Tayanjam Bijoy Kumar Singh. Tayanjam Bijoy Kumar Singh is an electrical engineer by profession, writer by inclination. He writes short stories, poetry and essays in English and Manipuri, also translates from Manipuri into English. His works have appeared in volumes published by OUP, Sage, Penguin Books, National Knowledge Commission, and are also taught in universities. Bijoy sir, the time is now given for your address. I think he has joined. I saw him. Yeah.
Yeah, he has joined.
Yeah. So I think you'll have to unmute Bijoy. Okay.
I think we can try to get to him.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think there's some connection problems, so he can join us later.
Vijayta, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Rashmi is on it. Sorry, these things happen online.
Yeah, I see, AJ Thomas also there, from Sahitya Academy. He was the editor of Indian literature there. Is he able to?
We'll just give him a few seconds.
Jax, Vijayta is having some problem unmuting himself. I think it has to be done from your side. And meanwhile, Elika, I think we can carry on with the rest of
No,
Yeah.
no, I checked.
It's not from our side. It's not from your side.
All
No.
right.
Yeah.
So I'll carry on. Okay.
Yeah, please do,
Yeah.
Elika. Please do.
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi. So let me move on to the main highlight of our session by introducing Mita Kapoor. Mita Kapoor is the founder and CEO of Siyahi, which is India's leading literary consultancy. Her first book, The F Word, is a food book, memoir, and travelogue. She has edited Chilies and Porridge, Writing Food, which is an anthology of essays on food. And as a freelance journalist, she also writes regularly for different newspapers and magazines on social and development issues, along with travel, food, and lifestyle. She has received many awards, including the Femina Women Superachiever Award in 2018 at the World HRD Congress, Maharani Gayatri Devi Award for Women of Excellence in 2014, and the Karamveer Puraskar in 2009 for her work as a journalist in creating social awareness and for being the best literary consultant in the country. She is the curator of Masala Chowk, a food court for street food in Jaipur, and a member of the Executive Council for Jawahar Kala Kendra. She was the producer for the Mountain Echoes Festival of Arts, Literature, and Culture from 2010 to 2019, and now produces the Woman Up Summit and Soul Connect experiences. As an inspirational woman of achievement, Mita, it's truly an honor to have you with us. So in context of our talk, bridging the gap between author and publishing, many of us would agree that this is not a recent trend. Historically speaking, writers have invariably labored to find a platform to bring their work to the world. Nonetheless, today, even prior to the pandemic, we're also seeing a rise of self-publishing or hubs of alternative ways of publishing. So from a writer's perspective, perhaps the horizons of publishing platforms have widened. And this brings me to my first question. What is the perspective from a literary agent or literary consultancy point of view, the current trends of the publishing industry?
First of all, thank you. And I wish you didn't read out my entire bio. I think I should just shorten it and send it. It's boring. But thank you. I'm really, really honored to be part of the session with the Northeastern Writers Forum. I've always been on the lookout for voices from the Northeast. It's always been special for me. I think when we began Syahi, just in the first couple of years, we had done a whole day of seminars in the India Habitat Center on Northeastern writing. And yeah, it was just one of those most amazing revelatory days, which has memories etched in my brain. But this becomes even more special for me. As far as publishing trends, you're very right in observing that self-publishing has picked up. Technology, thankfully, is giving us numerous platforms for a writer to find a way of expressing herself or himself. You know, whether you are becoming a YouTube star and your poetry is being read out there, or you're doing your own podcast with micro stories of whatever is your passion, or you know, whether the podcast is for 15 minutes or 13, 14 minutes, which has the regular length, or it's an hour long, or it's the latest trend is just to have a 3-minute or 4-minute long podcast. So you kind of, you know, that is where your craft comes into play. There are self-publishing platforms, like there's the Wattpad is doing very well. Storytel is doing great stuff with audio renditions of storybooks, or whether it's fiction or non-fiction. And then, of course, there is self-publishing where you land up with the challenges of what do you do with marketing and distribution. And also the challenge comes when you're self-publishing, you've got to make sure that you are edited properly. Then, of course, there is mainstream publishing. And even though the pandemic has hit the publishing industry in India, but I can tell you this much, that the way I've seen the powers that be in the publishing industry come together, rally together, show the spirit, fight it out, brainstorm together, and try and, you know, up the game to find ways of overcoming the challenges that have been posed by the lockdowns in various states, and even printing presses being shut, supply chains being blocked, retail going absolutely zero. But I think the coming together and looking at solutions and finding those solutions and taking action promptly has been the strength and the spirit of the industry. So all is not lost. It's not so bleak. It will take time to pick up again because unfortunately, a simple thing like books were not a part of the essential services for deliveries or for online ordering from any platform in India, which is where we lost out a lot. And a lot of independent bookstores or even bookstore chains lost a lot of business again because of the lockdown. So, it obviously it has a dominoes effect. But having said that, I think what has shown forth is the fact that there's a lot more writing that's got done. There's a lot more creativity that's got nurtured. I can say so because as an agent, I have received the number of submissions that we started getting. It was amazing. I mean, the numbers just kind of went up 5-6 times, and we were actually scrambling for time to read. In fact, there was a big joke in my family, Mom, your routine hasn't changed. You still get into office at the same time and you still work late hours and you still, always cribbing that you don't have time for anything else. So pandemic or no pandemic, lockdown or no lockdown, I said, yeah, well, it's thanks to the creative people around us, who are enlivening and enriching the scene of storytelling and culture and perpetuating our arts. So there have been ups and there have been downs. So, well, I know for sure that because we've signed on many more writers in the last 1.5 years than I've ever signed on ever since Yahi began, which is a very rare thing for me because we are very, very careful in taking on books. We grow organically. We've never chased numbers. Like, I'm not the kinds who will go around blabbing about, oh, I represent so many writers. Frankly speaking, I won't even remember the number because it's never mattered to me. It's always the content. It's always what are we putting out there? Whom are we helping get published? Whether it's an acclaimed writer or a debut writer, or it's working with the languages. It's always been part of our mandate ever since we began in 2007, and it continues to be our mandate. Yes, the survival has become very difficult. The economics of it was always messed up for a literary agency because it's not a viable business proposition. But it's not always about the money, is it? It's always about the faith in the power of the word, no matter in what form you tell your stories. But we have to continue and power on in spite of everything that's happening around us.
That's really encouraging to hear that, given these circumstances and a lot of people who are getting into, who are budding on writers wanting to get published. I know that personally, I know of a lot of them who had been discouraged because what was happening. But I mean, this is a different side altogether that we're hearing that, we are beginning to see a lot of creative work. And so it's encouraging to hear that. I wanted to, as a follow-up to what you've said, you mentioned about manuscripts that you receive, and as an editor, what is the basic criteria that you look for a manuscript so that it becomes viable for publishing houses?
I get this question all the time, and this is one question that I still don't know how to answer. I'll be very honest. It's so difficult to, one, I hate generalizing. Even though we fall into the trap of generalizing all the time. And I hate passing statements. Hate is too strong a word, but I'm constantly questioning what I say about this all the time because it changes from book to book, right? But the basic tenets, yes, I really need to hear the voice of the writer. I need to see creative stylistic expression. I need to see correct English. Okay, let me start with that. Oh my God. I also need to be gripped right from the first line. Like I really want to read on. So whether it becomes too descriptive or it's too verbose or it's not making me imagine a particular scene, I need to see how the story arc is moving. I need to see how the plot structure is unfolding. I really need to feel the character becoming alive in front of me. I need to see that. I need to see a multidimensional person, whoever is playing out, whether it's the narrator or any of the subsidiary characters also. I need to see how it's all coming together, fluidity of prose, the chapters transitioning very smoothly, tautness in writing. A lot, like less is more. A lot, I need to see a lot of show, not tell. I need to see if there are dialogues. I need to see are they being spoken in a manner that is believable. You know, sometimes otherwise dialogues are just kind of thrown in where you try and speak them out to yourself and saying, who speaks like that anymore? You know, so all of these things, but then again, sometimes some of these aspects work for some books, while it may not work for some other book. So, which is why I'm saying it's a very tough question to answer. Yeah, and obviously another thing is if a book begins with a sunset or a sunrise, I'm like, I have already taken 10 steps backwards in my head because I don't understand why you can't think beyond cliches. That is where I want to see the soaring of imagination. I want to see that creativity being unleashed, you know. Also, even if it's fiction or non-fiction, sometimes it needs a lot of research. Now, and how you plug that research in is also another art, right? So I need to see all of that happening. You can also make out whether the writer is actually comfortable writing in the language he's writing in, or he or she are writing in another language, but they are thinking in their mother tongue. That becomes a huge disconnect. It also adds, on the flip side, it adds a certain quaintness. It adds a certain nice turn of phrase. Everyone using, even if you're talking about writing in English, as we are right now, it does add a little punch, let's say, or a twist in the tongue, which is sometimes very charming. So it's not that it's all lost, you know. I guess I've said a lot. Sorry if I'm meandering.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. No, I get the fact that probably you're getting this question a lot, and the amount of material that would probably coming to, that would be coming to your way. You mentioned about how there are certain things that you prefer, certain things that you would probably be put off by, especially when you're reading through the materials. And so this, I think, this brings me to the process of the pen
Today
to
is
print
one of the day when
process,
technology
right? So
fails, everything
what
fails.
is it that works
My Wi-Fi failed.
better with agents and editors?
Okay, I have
let's
joined
say?
it.
So whether
I have joined
a
it.
writer proposing a concept with a synopsis and then working on it together with the editor, or submission of a completed draft by the writer, right? So we'd like to know a little bit about the challenges or the foreseeable hurdles in the process. I think this is something that we would like to know.
So what I gather of your question is about the process. Normally, like what we expect is a synopsis and 3 sample chapters. And if I like that, then I ask for the complete manuscript. We do give feedback to every submission that comes to us. Even if it's the 3 sample chapters, very rarely do I lose hope very quickly. And it's very rare that an email goes from CIE saying, I'm sorry, we can't represent your work, just without any feedback. Can you excuse me? I think my dog does this purposely.
I think, Sorry.
Sorry. She
That's
does this
fine.
every
That's
time I'm in a session. She must come in and out. Oof. Anyway, yeah. So we like to work, but just receiving a proposal and then putting an editor to it is something that that publishers are more let's say equipped to do, because as an agency we are a very small team and we are constantly reading, and we're also the same team that manages all the admin, all the contracts, all the events. We clone ourselves constantly. So yeah, I think, and also the fact that you send in a proposal with chapter summaries or something, it's very rare that even publishers will have, right now in the current circumstances, have the inclination to work with something like that. So it's always better to do your research and please read. Oh God, please just read a lot. You don't become a writer without reading. So it's better to work on your chapters and your synopsis and everything, and make sure that you send a clean, proofread, free of grammatical errors, sample chapters, please. And no, and you know, I have this pet peeve. I may sound very, very snobbish when I'm saying this, and please pardon me, but you know what really puts me off is when I get a dear sir / ma'am. You don't even know whom you're writing to, really. You know, it's as simple as that. That means you haven't done your research. You don't know whom you're writing to. Why are you just mitigating the identity of the person you're writing to? And you call yourself a writer or a creative person. You know, so that kind of just, it really ticks me off. I'm sorry, but I've actually written a lot about this and I keep laughing. I find it very funny. And it's not that I don't read their emails. I do. I still do. It's not that. But it's just that it kind of makes me wince in my head and say, writing to an agent, you're hoping that that person is going to consider reading your work. At least show that you know who that person is. And in the world of the internet, right? But no, that's just me cribbing. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, I still do read everything that comes in.
All right. So I just want to add one more question, and it's like a follow-up of the earlier conversation that we were having. And I want to move on to the online fiction communities. There happens to be a flourishing writing community, especially fan fiction, that exists online, since you're talking about the internet, with considerable innovation and experimentation, which is led by the community. So storytelling, in fact, seems to be the natural expression on the web, given that the web works with content itself, and platforms allow for free use of expressions as well as a steady reader base, right? So to give you some examples, some of the famous authors whose writings started off as fan fiction includes the likes of Cassandra Clare of the Mortal Instruments series, E.L. James, 50 Shades of Grey. So in this context, how will traditional publishing take into account this kind of writing that is increasingly digital and directly available to readers, most times for free? What are your thoughts about that?
You know, it actually becomes a whole pool of creative talent. I think the way the publishing industry looks at it is that they're actually scouting for such voices. And there are so many cases of so many writers having been picked up and pulled into mainstream publishing. So I don't think we see traditional mainstream publishing sees it as a challenge anymore. When it began, it kind of maybe unsettled a lot of the publishing industry. And I remember attending so many sessions at the Frankfurt Book Fair when all of this trend was beginning some years back. And, at the end of with the stalwarts of the industry speaking there from all across the world, each one of them, I remember, had this one takeaway, that the book, the form of the book, is not going anywhere anytime soon. So with that intrinsic faith, I feel that there is an interlocking of all channels that is happening, which is just great. And yes, there is content for free, which is being consumed, uh, which is fine. And if you get recognition through that, why not? You know, I've always maintained this in the creative hemisphere. There is place for everybody to shine, but just make sure that you shine. And then you kind of are in the right place at the right time. Instead of viewing it as a hurdle or a stumbling block, I think we should use it to our advantage.
So, do you also scout for writings on such platforms?
I do.
Let's say Wattpad. Yeah. Okay.
I do. In fact, if I come across some names doing something differently, and I feel okay, there's a book in there, I do get in touch with them and say, hey, I saw your work. Do you think you would want to write? Some of them say yes, some of them say no. It's always a hit and miss because everybody may not be inclined or may not have the time. But we do look for fresh voices all the time.
That's wonderful. Okay, so I'll move on. And Mita, I would like to periodically return to you as we progress with the remarks from other speakers for today. They are Bijoya Sawayan and Juliana Faume and Dr. Kumlat Ong Mayo. So let me begin by introducing Bijoya Sawayan. Bijoya is a writer and translator who divides her time between Shillong and Dehradun. Her literary works comprise of her highly acclaimed translations from Khasi into English and are about the indigenous culture of the Khasis. Her first biography, Unfolding the Legend, The Extraordinary Life of Lala B.K. Dey, the last IG police of undivided Assam, is about her father and has been very well received. Her works of fiction include Shadow Man with Speaking Tigers, Tiger Books, and Family Secret and Other Stories with Zuban. Shadow Man was shortlisted for the prestigious Rabindranath Tagore Literary Prize of 2020. And many of her short stories have been published both in India and abroad, including the Sahitya Academy. Her stories and articles have been translated into Hindi as well. So Sawayan is a keen and dedicated educator, and along with her husband, Alark Singh, she runs the Anfield Senior Secondary Co-Educational School at Vikasnagar, Dehradun in Uttarakhand. Bijoy, it's wonderful to have you with us. To begin with, as we've just heard about your works, you've done translations, original fictions, and even your father's biography. It's absolutely fascinating that you've tapped into a range of genres. So how challenging was the switch from one to another? And also, how was your experience each time with editors and publishers?
Thank you, Dr. Asumi, and hi, Mita. It's so nice, an honor to be speaking to you. Let me talk about my journey with the publishing world first. I think it's very important to choose the right publisher. You know, you send out your manuscripts and finally you get your feedback, and then you must choose a publisher who understands your work, who appreciates your work, and who will take the book along its journey like a parent would do to a child. It's not just about, signing the, contract and publishing it, but nurturing the book the way you have written it with so much love. So I think the most important thing is actually to choose the right publisher who understands you, you can connect with totally. I think that was my experience, and I like to share with all the aspiring authors. Thank you, Mita, for all the wonderful advice. I've learned so much today. And okay, you're talking about yes, I've been writing articles and middles and short stories and poems since the 1980s. And then since my family was so involved in translation and preserving indigenous culture, I've translated the teachings of elders, which 109 stanzas, and in perfect rhyme and meter and exquisite Kasi, but I managed it. And the main ceremonies of the Kasis for Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture. And then, of course, came Shadow Men and the Family Secret and the biography. Now, with Shadow Men, you see, the first edition was done with Zuban and Penguin. And why I'm saying it's very important for your publisher to understand what you're writing and what you want to say, is because I really wanted to write an introduction to Zuban and explain about Kasi Matrolini and why, the hill people dislike the outsiders and why this conflicts have been going on for almost 100 years, over 100 years. But, the publishers, I think they know so much about the Northeast that they said, no, there was no need to do it. So as a result, the book was on the shelf for 10 years and people are writing back to me and saying, we like your narrative, your poetic prose, but we don't understand so many things. Where Speaking Tiger understood. That's why I'm saying it's so important to connect with the publisher. They understood, they asked me, what is this conflict about? Why do the Khasis dislike the Bengalis so much? Why are the Bengalis crowding Shillong? I mean, what is this Khasi matrilineal? What's this angst about the Khasi men? Why are they so upset, And I could weave that into the book. I was able to do that. So the second edition is really something, and that's why it was shortlisted for the Tagore Prize. It's a complete book. And when I look at it, the first book is good, certainly. Well, the editors thought so, but it's a very incomplete book. So you must connect with your editor, your publisher. You must find the right person who understands you and your book completely. And of course, then I wrote about my father. During lockdown last year, I decided, my brother and I, to write about him. It's because, like the translations, my main aim in writing was the joy of writing, but also to communicate, to connect the Northeast with the rest of India and the world. So I got my chance through Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, through my translations. And even the book on my father is actually, the history of the entire region from the 18th century to the 21st century. He came from Sylhet, so that's where the story began. And then, of course, he joined the army and then the police. And even Shadow Men. Why did I write it? I wrote it because I want to explain, why was there militancy in Meghalaya? What do the Khasi men feel? Why does matrilineal need adjustment, like so many age-old traditions? And the short stories also have something, about Khasi life in every short story. I've woven it somehow, like in the passing, I wrote about the death ceremony, the last rites. And there's another story I wove in the marriage ceremony and the courting. Then I wrote about the dreams of the people in the rural areas, what they do, what they dream about. Because I feel that we must connect through it. Books, and that is my actual aim in writing, the joy of writing. And if that sets me going, I feel this book is going to be enjoyed, and I'm enjoying writing it, and it's going to connect the Northeast with the rest of India and the world, I just go for it.
Thank you, Vijaya. That's fascinating. I wanted to just remind the participants that if you have any questions, just feel free to post it on the chat box, and or else you can unmute yourself and post your question during the Q&A session. I think I would like to now give the time to our Vice President, Sayanjam Bijoy Kumar Singh. He has been able to join us, so I'll just give the time to him for his address.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, Lund?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Today is one of the days when technology fails. Actually, I was trying to connect with my laptop, the Wi-Fi failed. Then now I have joined with my desktop. It is one of those days. Actually, our president, Mr. Dhruva Hazarika, is supposed to be here as a president and to give his address. but he has got some eye problems. So I have come in his place. So I, on behalf of Mr. Dhruva Hazarika, would like to extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Mita Kapoor, whom we held in very high esteem. Ms., you might not have noticed that we have never met before, but we have corresponded. We have corresponded with through email. Till last year itself, you had asked me to send me the list of the publishers, local publishers. I had promised you to send. Yeah, it goes on like this. And about our Notice Writers Forum, we are like a family, and in each of the states there are chapters, and each chapters uses different nomenclature for literary events they organized. It is Matrix for Arunachal, Expressions for Assam, Conference for Manipur, Ensemble for Meghalaya, Hilltop for Mizoram, and for Nagaland it's Tongue Twister, that's what's Mizoram for Nagaland, and Converse for Sikkim, and Interface for Tripura. We are going to be 25 years old actually. So we are celebrating our silver jubilee next year. And Tripura, our Tripura chapter is organizing the main event. And we wish you to be there, ma'am. Then after the main event at Tripura, then this events will go to the respective states, to all the states in the Northeast. And I just had noticed something which you had said, ma'am, that some writers are writing in English, but they are thinking in their mother tongue. You said that. And it is like this, that my mother tongue is Manipuri. We speak Manipuri at home, but I got my education in English. Then after leaving school, I never wrote even a single sentence in Manipuri for a long time. And in our office also, we write in English, even though that Manipuri is the official language. So when I wrote my first short story, it automatically came out in English. Then after writing many short stories, then some of my friends suggested me to write in Manipuri also. Then this thing suddenly came to me that the first sentence is very important for me. Once I start writing in English, then the subsequent, the next sentence comes out in English. Then if I pick the first sentence in Manipuri, then it comes out in Manipuri. I don't know about other writers, but it is like that for me. And
Well, I think that's fantastic, sir, because you obviously, because all of us have been educated in English, so we've got
Yes.
attuned to thinking in English. So, and if you can shift gears between languages, I think you're especially blessed, and more power to you, really.
Thank you so much. And literature is not my subject. Actually, I didn't have any education in English, literature, but somehow or other, I think one incident pinched me, which I saw on the road. That with that incident, I started writing short story. So that made me writer. Now I'm writing poetry and short story. For short stories, actually, I do like this. If some incident or something pinches my mind, and I make a skeleton of the story first. Then I do research that to fill in the gaps, and then I construct the characters like that. Actually, it is very fortunate for us that you have given your valuable.
Please don't talk like that. Please.
Oh no, actually, we have you very high esteem. Even though we have not met, we have corresponded. Anyway, most of our senior members, they know you very well, even if they have not met you yeah, like about Rubazikai, he said that he has never met you, but he held you in a very high esteem, and we are really honored with your presence here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Bijoy sir. I would now like to move on to Juliana, but in between, if there are some questions that either to Bijoya or to Mita Kapoor, I think we'll be working in that order. So let me introduce Juliana Faume. Juliana is based in Imphal, and where she constantly juggles creative and academic literature as she pursues writing, music, and a PhD. Being a social work graduate, she also has a passion for doing projects. The most recent being Zuban SPF research project. In her free time, she documents the literature, folk songs, and handlooms of her Rongmei community. She also regularly writes on her blog and social media handles under the name This Day My Life. Thank you, Juliana, for joining us. So here's my first question to you. You document the literature of your community, the Rongmai, and also write a blog. This is really interesting work that you are doing. And so have you considered putting all of this work together into a book? Let's start with that. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very honored to be speaking in front of very eminent personalities. And also I'm thankful to Sir Bijoy here, who helped me get a membership in this forum, and also Rashmi ma'am here, who believed that I could be of some help in this session. So coming to that question, so the literature that I mostly document is, like you mentioned, songs. So that I consider that the Rongmei poetry, and also when these songs are part of folk tales, which is the case for most of them, I also document the folk tales too. And again, since this work I started seriously only during the pandemic, I have been able to document only the ones that my father and my uncles share with me. And also, like you mentioned, the other thing that I'm documenting is the clothing of our community, especially the handloom, especially the paiswai, which is the word for mihla. And so it may not come under the conventional category of literature or poetry or anything, but all the varieties and intricate details of the patterns and motifs all come with stories woven together. And so as your question, I do think of putting these together in like different books, but again, it's not too soon, because I believe that community-owned literature needs to be given a lot more work, a lot more research, and verifying and comparing variations across time periods and regions and all that before it is published. And when it comes to my blog, so I started maintaining the page from around 2015, when I was obsessed with Humans of New York and all that. And so I started writing something similar to that, but with my friends. And so now to turn that into a book is a little embarrassing for me right now. And so after that, I started writing just random thoughts and travel stories and all that. And again, I think that those are really not organized. I really like organizing things in my head. But the serious writing that I started doing was after I finished university, and then the heavy academic workload was lifted. That was when I really started writing fiction in the form of short stories and poetry, and also this book reviews and food reviews. And so if I were to put anything together in a book, I think it would be those things, especially the short stories and poetry, because those are the only things that I am confident enough to share right now.
All right. So Juliana, so you mentioned that you write poetry. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this aspect of your creative writing?
So the first forms of poetry that I started with is songwriting. So I started playing with words and rhymes when I was 8 years or 9 years old, and I turned them into songs, and then I kind of released them. I was only 12 or 13 back then, which is still embarrassing for me. But the kind of poetry that I wrote as a kid was like Christian, because I am a pastor's daughter, and so it's all about Christian and religious things. And as I grew older and as I saw more things in life, now I started writing about being myself, being being a person from here, say a tribal girl living in Manipur, or just looking at things and looking at people's lives and writing about that, or certain aspects like death or confusion in life in general. I'm in my mid-20s, so it's a very confusing part of life, I guess. So that, and then again, the kind of, since it's lyrics, since it's mostly songwriting, so even the poetry that I write, which does not, which I didn't intend to turn to songs, I always end up rhyming them, and then I always end up turning into songs. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Juliana. That was lovely to hear about your story. I wanted to just direct a question to you and to Bijoya as well. But I cannot see Bijoya on the screen. So when she comes, oh yeah. So I wanted to just quickly ask this question to Bijoya. You mentioned about in your work that you did a lot of groundwork, a lot of research, especially when it came to writing about your community. Do you want to share with us a little bit about this process?
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, so I was just asking you about the process of your research that you carried out when you were writing about the Khasi, the community, the practices among the Khasis.
Okay, the first book is called The Teaching of Elders. It's the Khasi book of ethics and etiquette. So basically, I lived that life, you know, but it was put in verse in 1901 by Radhan Singh Berry Karwanlang. It's a literary masterpiece in Khasi. Because before that, ours was an oral tradition. So when we got our alphabet in 1842, and my maternal great-grandfather established the first printing press in 1899, he published the Khasi version. And when my aunt asked me to actually translate it into English, I was horrified because I'm not really a poet, and 109 stanzas in perfect Khasi. But somehow I managed to do it. With the help of my aunt and trunk calls from Dehradun, going to and fro. And that was research means they helped me translate the work. Now, the main ceremonies of the Khasis are the three main ceremonies: that's naming, marriage, and death, the last rites. I translated the essays already written by the elder K.S. Marbanyang about the naming ceremony. My aunt wrote the marriage ceremony, which is very complicated. And of course, the last rites done by Walampang Roy, who's also a cousin of mine. So I translated these words, and they were very difficult. There was so much of detail, but somehow I managed to do them. And I'm so grateful to Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, Guwahati, who believed in the work and the works, and they published these works. Yes.
All right, Bijoya, thank you. And this brings, while you're talking about translations, this brings us to, Mita, I want to pose this question to you. What possibilities do you see, as far as the translated works from the Northeast is concerned?
Huge. we are hungry. We're looking out for translations, and I think and when I'm saying we, I'm taking the liberty to speak for the entire publishing industry, where I think and a lot more translations are being picked up. So it's not as narrow or limited as it used to be, like, let's say, even 15 years back or 20 years back. There's a lot more work going on in translation. Every mainstream publishing house is focusing a particular imprint or an arm or a series on translations. So I think we should. I think everyone, whoever's listening to this, please get in touch with publishers, get in touch with us, whoever you want to. But just send in the translated works, because I know it is. I think translation and the work done by a translator is even more significant, more troublesome than just writing in your own language. It is an art, and respect for translators is like up there in my head, because I can imagine how much work goes into creativity in translation also. So, and I think the wealth of our literature is in our languages, and if we can't cross-pollinate, then we are really losing out on a lot of not just voices or creative talent, but also important archives, important folklore, important traditions. I mean, when I'm listening to Bijoya talk about the Book of the Elders, or even the marriage rituals, or the funeral rituals, or the naming ceremony rituals, whatever, and also so many dialects that are there that are actually dying out right now. We need to preserve our language traditions, but we also need to cross-pollinate storytelling from one language into another. I think it should be our paramount duty to encourage it.
So is there a particular genre that you wish to look out for when it comes to translated work?
Alaika?
Sorry, yes.
Can I ask a
yes, of
question
course.
to
Yes, please.
Ms. Meeta, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
But yeah, not just Writers Forum, we had a project with Katha, and we had some tacit agreement to publish 6 volumes. We have published only 4 volumes, and we are interested to publish translated works from the Northeast. And we from the Northeast feel that our writings and other things are not going out of the region. So translation is the only means to take our writings to other places. So can we have some further what you talk on this and correspondence, and then can we do a project on this?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And that's one of the ideals that I started Syahi with. Yes. was to encourage as much translation. I know it's a process. I know it takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
in traditional publishing, but I think if we just hang in there and follow it and pursue it committedly, a lot of wonderful things can happen. And I'd love to correspond with you, exploring all possibilities, help you out as much as I can. Maybe make some more linkages, act as a conduit and pushing things for whatever you have in mind. I'm here to help, no worries.
Yeah, then it's like translators only they know. Because other people, they think that translation is very easy. It's not that. In my case, I think I have to put in 10 times more labor than doing my own writing. And I'm happy that some of my translations are taught at universities. And yeah, I have translated some plays, Ratan Thiam's plays. It is taught at Mizoram University under translation studies. And at other universities also, this book is taught. And Mitra Fukon is also one of the leading translators.
Yes, I know. I'm very well aware of Mitra's work.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then we will correspond on this.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let me come back to the question that I was asking earlier. Is there a particular genre of translated work that you look out for, or publishing houses do they look out for?
Okay, I'll be very blunt when I say this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to crush a few people's hopes when I say this, and forgive me already. But full-fledged pieces of prose, whether fiction or non-fiction, are definitely something that publishers are looking for. Poetry and short stories are still difficult, very, very difficult at this stage, especially because every publisher is number crunching and everyone is watching out for what they are investing in. So unfortunately, these choices are made by the market forces, by what publishers are picking up, what is selling, what the readers are buying. It's a conundrum. But right now, yes, fiction, non-fiction, both will be very welcome.
All right.
And within fiction, if you're looking at mythological translations or folklore or even textile traditions or whatever kind of stories, it's all good. The translation has to be like really well done, which I know is difficult. And I really have a lot of respect for people who translate.
All right. So we'll come back to this on translation, but I'd like to quickly move on to introduce Dr. Gumlat Ong Mayo. Gumlat is a writer, cartoonist, and the author of the campus comic trilogy, Once Upon a Time in College, as well as a compilation of cartoon sketches, which was titled Cheap Pencil. He is a recipient of the Governor's Young Achievers Award of 2018 for literature. And he also works as a medical officer with the Arunachal Pradesh state government. Thank you, Gumlat, for joining us. So you've self-published your works, and that's too with a growing readership. I find this fascinating because we don't have many like you in the Northeast. If you look at the history of English language comics, there's always been a community-led self-publishing, and it has been a vibrant part of the scene since the 1980s. So would you like to share with us about your journey from manuscript to getting published? What inspired you to take this direction, especially your cartoon work?
Okay, so I started writing when I was in medical college. So actually, I wanted to write stories or write a novel which revolved around the culture of my place, about Arunachal. But since most of my years were in medical college, so I did not get chance to go home. So the first, when I started planning to write a novel, it had to be about medical college because I didn't know about anything else and no other subject. And for the completing my novel, it was social media which helped me a lot because I used to write a chapter, I used to upload it on my Facebook, and my classmates, seniors, juniors, they used to read it, and they used to keep encouraging me, when is the next chapter coming? And that way I kept adding the chapters, I kept writing that. I looked at it like I was writing a novel. So I kept on writing, and after writing like three and a half years, almost 4 years, it became, it had more than 100 chapters. So obviously no publisher will publish a novel with 100 chapters. So I divided those 100 chapters into three novels, part 1, part 2, and part 3. And also at that time I had no guidance about if I wanted to convert this manuscript into a book, who should I approach? And in Arunachal, English writer, I only knew Mamangdai Men, and even there was no chance of meeting her because in Arunachal, all the book clubs, the literary forums, literary groups, they are all in the capital in Itanagar, and I stayed far away from the capital. In the Itanagar is in the western part of Arunachal, and I stay in eastern part close to the Myanmar border. So I had no contact with any literary forums or groups in the capital or with anyone. So when there was no guidance, then the only thing which guided me was Google and social media. So I searched Google, and in Google, when you search the list of publishers, then obviously the self-publishers, they are more prominent. Then I approached self-publishers and got my first novel published from there. And only after the first novel was published, only then my friends who had connections, they used to tell me, okay, Arunachal for the first time it's hosting a literature festival. We will also invite you there. We will put you in the panel discussions and all. And it was only in the literature festival in Arunachal that I got to meet many writers from the Northeast. And they, from seeking their advice, my novel, it was already published by a self-publisher, but only after it was already published, it was only after that I started sending my manuscripts to the mainstream publishers, to the traditional publishers, literary agents, and all that. And I think I sent the manuscript to almost 16 to 18 mainstream publishers. And out of that, two of them accepted my manuscript. But I was shocked that they were asking for such a huge amount. One of them said that, okay, we have two options for publishing a book. One is the traditional method, and the other is called partnership publishing. In traditional method, it's free. We will do all the editing, the production work, everything, and you don't have to pay anything. But it will take a lot of time. We have to wait for 2 to 3 years because we have a vast backlog. We have to complete all those manuscripts which are yet to be printed, and only after that your serial number that will come. And the other method, the faster method, is partnership publishing, which half the cost we will be bearing it, and the other half, it's the author who has to bear the cost. And I said, okay, if it's not much, then and I wanted my book to get published faster. Okay, I will opt for partnership publishing, and what is the cost? And they said that it's 99,500 rupees. Then I said, can I change my option back to traditional publishing then? I'll wait. Okay. They said, okay, we'll put your manuscript back to traditional publishing, and they are yet to reply. And the second publishing house which accepted my manuscript, even they asked for a certain amount. They said that I asked them, why is such a big amount? And they said that, no, it's for the advertising. We will advertise your book in the national newspapers. We will advertise it through YouTube. We will send your book to reviewers in the big newspapers. And I said that, what is the cost? And he said, it was a lady, the representative of the publishing house. She said that, no, it's you don't need to pay it in lump sum. You can pay it in installments. And I said, then what is the amount? She said, 30,000. I said, 30,000, and the installments is for how many months? Then she said that you can pay the sum in 5 installments in 5 months. I said, 30,000 5 months it's okay, 6,000 per month. And she said, no, 30,000 per month for 5 months. That comes to 1.5 lakhs. But even then, I was so desperate to get published that I told her, oh, give me 2-3 days, I will think about it. And after asking my family members, they used to say that, what? For publishing a book, 1.5 lakhs. You use that 1.5 lakhs to pay down payment and get a new car now. Why spending so much for a book? And I gave up on that also. And I told myself that there are 2 kinds of writers in the world. The first is the exceptional writers. No matter which literary agent or publisher they will submit the manuscript, they will get published. And the second one are good writers. good writers, all the publishers, they may not accept you, and you need maybe you need connections to get published. And last month we had Mr. Ravi Singh. He is the co-founder of the publishing house Speaking Tiger Books. Even one of the participants, they asked him a question that how can we improve our manuscript so that it has better chances of getting selected for publication. Even he said that it would be better if you approach it through a literary agent. The literary agent will vouch for you, and either if your manuscript is submitted through a literary agent, or if you submit the manuscript to someone who works in the publishing house, or to through someone who knows someone in the publishing house, then it has better chances of getting selected. So for me, it was like if I'm not an exceptional writer, I need connections to get published. So I told myself that, yeah, you keep writing your manuscript. If it's not accepted, then self-publish it. And from the lessons which we have learned from the manuscript which you've written, improve your craft so that it gets better, and there are chances of getting selected in future. So that's what I'm doing. If it gets selected, then it's okay. If not, then move on to the next manuscript.
Right. Fascinating story, Kumlat. But do you want to say something on that, Mita? I saw your eyes pop out several times.
I'm so unhappy when I've heard this. Full respect to you, your diehard spirit. It's amazing that you're just hanging in there and you're so optimistic. I really admire that and respect that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am so sorry to hear about this unpleasant experience that you've had. I don't know. I know you may not be comfortable revealing the names of these couple of publishers, but these are what we call vanity publishing, which is actually self-publishing, because those are the people who ask for money to, kind of publish your book. Mainstream traditional publishers will not. So I really don't know whom you went to, but it's very unfortunate. And what Ravi said is also very true. You have more chances because if you come to a literary agent, the literary agent will obviously give you feedback and hopefully help you hone your manuscript. Or you have connections, which is actually the reality, however distasteful it sounds. But I like the way you've embraced the reality, which is amazing. But again, I think on behalf of the publishing industry, first of all, I need to apologize to you that you've had an unpleasant experience, because that kind of, I was, Elika, you're right, I was rolling my eyes and I was like, oh my God, not another story like this. What I can also suggest is that instead of spending money on vanity publishing, you should probably look at really working on your manuscript with a professional editor, before you head out to anyone with that manuscript, because no manuscript in its first or second draft is actually ready in that sense. So somebody who views it objectively with a professional eye and kind of does a line edit or a structural edit or a developmental edit, that helps a lot. So that is probably the next step for you. And for whoever's aspiring to write. And you have such stalwarts sitting on this panel like Bijoya, and the Mitra is there, and Sir Bijoy is there, and so many writers are there. And you'll find lots of mentors.
Thank you, Mita. I want to just quickly, before we continue with you, Kumlat, let me ask this question to Juliana. Since we are on the topic of publishing, I know that you're someone who is yet to be published, whose work is yet to be published. Do you want to say something about your experience as well?
Thank you for the question. So yes, I think at least our Dr. Gumlat here has known the experience of trying to get published and going through certain steps. But for most of us, I think we grew up, especially in the Northeast, we grew up in a time where there were not enough good books or good books at all for us to read, and our communities are mostly oral tradition. So we were not a reading community. Most of us are still not, and so most of us are introduced to the world of reading and writing only after we cross our high school and get exposed to the cities and all the literary world out there. So and also again for us, just like Dr. Gumlat, our education system does not help. We are first trying to get a degree, get a job, and then wait if we have enough time and money to start spending on writing. And also there's a lot of fear before we start submitting manuscripts, a lot of ignorance also, even myself. And before I joined the new Northeast Writers Forum, I had very less knowledge of what are the steps that we need to go through before we get ourselves published. And also only after I started knowing of our Northeast writers and all the good literature that they write, I also started having some confidence in myself. And also, like the panel has mentioned before, because of social media, we were able to share to our blog. Say, I use WordPress, and then Instagram, and even WhatsApp stories. So using those things, we were able to share our work and get some self-confidence. And if not for that, we would also have no idea. That's my point. And it's like our dreams of being a writer and living in very nice cottages, those are really far away.
Thank you, Juliana. And I would also like to come to Bijoya. Given the fact that you're really well published and you've already got your works out there, would you like to share with us a little bit about your early days? So I think you have to unmute. Yeah.
Could you repeat the question now, please?
So I was asking you about your early experiences when you went about, putting your manuscripts out.
I was so lucky in the sense that, of course, I told you my translations were done in this press first, owned by the family, which was set up in 1899 to publish books on indigenous faith and culture, to preserve it. But the best part was that someone came up to Shillong to meet my aunt, Sujata Naik from Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture. We gifted her the copy of the Teaching of Elders, the Khasi books of ethics and etiquette. And they liked it so much that they just took it up. And then they asked me to do the main ceremonies of the Khasis. And I've still got one called About One God, about the Khasi indigenous faith, which is still lying with me. Now about Shadow Men, I must say, I wrote it one traumatic August evening in Shillong when the militants were running through our compound. And the first thing I said was, oh my God, I'm so glad the dogs are not loose. And my sister-in-law said, you're talking about militants. I said, no, but I don't think anyone wants to be a militant or wicked or violent. So she said, I think you have I think your perspective will be very interesting. So that's how I started Shadow Men. And then I put it in a cupboard for 3 years and I did nothing about it. And then when I was in Guwahati 3 years later, my friend from school, Nina Day, said, Bijoy, but this kind of perspective, you're the only one who can do it because you're insider outsider, meaning I'm rooted in the Northeast, but I live outside the Northeast. So I sort of made 3 copies of this manuscript and I took it to Delhi. And the first one I went to was Zuban because Urvashi was in college with me. And it was so heartening because she liked the story and she and Penguin immediately picked it up. But as I said, it was not a complete story because there were so many gaps, so many important things to be explained, which they didn't think was important. And that Speaking Tiger allowed me to do. So my journey in the publishing world I've been quite lucky. But looking at it now, I'm so glad to hear Mita saying that there's no manuscript leaves her publishing house without inputs. That's so important. It doesn't matter if your manuscript is rejected. You work on those inputs. I tell every aspiring writer, please work on those inputs. And because I worked on it with Speaking Tiger, who understood that there were gaps, there were glaring gaps, it became almost a prize winner. I mean, it was shortlisted, you know. And one thing I would like just to say before I end is that why can't we have a publishing house in the Northeast, you know, like in collaboration with one of the big publishing houses? I mean, Mita, of course, understands our work, the importance of our work, so she can be one of them. Because people have to feel for our work. They have to understand the importance of our work. It's very important for them to respect and understand why we are writing. And we can establish that in Guwahati and perhaps, you know, guide our writers, inspire writers. Because, you know, once it reaches mainland India, there are about 20 books and people are saying, oh, but why should I read this book about the Northeast? So the marketing, the reviews, the encouragement we have to give to the readership is very important for our books to be successful. This is what I feel.
Mita, do you want to add to that? Any thoughts?
No, I feel I've spoken the most on this panel and I'm actually very embarrassed.
Okay.
I agree with
In fact, Elika, I just like to add it out there with Ms. Savan out there. I think it's a very wonderful idea. You know, like maybe from the forum also we can work towards that. One publishing house from here, because we got so many writers out there, so many people are there. And I have seen, you know, like I also read quite a lot. I've seen the new books which are coming up and all. With various subjects and all, but Northeast, as we know, stories, basically, if you're talking about folk tales and stories, we are so rich in that. And if from every state we keep on writing, if we start from now on, it will take, you know, like maybe decades to, you know, like to finish it over the entire thing of it. That's a very good suggestion. Maybe from the forum, we will definitely think about this, you know, about having a publishing house for the Northeast, you know, particularly. And we can maybe tie up with a bigger publishing house and all. That's a very good suggestion, sir.
Right, Dipanjal. I think while we're on that, there's a question that's come in on our chat box as well. So I'm just going to quickly take that. And this is a question for Mita. What do you look for fiction or poetry from this region from the publishing point of view?
I think I've already mentioned that poetry is difficult, not because I don't like to read poetry, but personally, it's my favorite genre. I feel for it. I'm constantly listening to poetry podcasts. But I think fiction and non-fiction, both. We're looking for both, but in long form. Short stories, again, are difficult, as I said. But everything else, yes. And within the broad fiction genre of fiction and within the broad genre of nonfiction, anything will work.
All right. I think Mitra Fukan has also just seconded yeah, I'm just trying to look at the chat. Yes. So Mitra Fukan, if you are online, do you want to unmute and maybe share what you wanted to say instead of typing it in. We'd like to hear your voice and to see you as well. I'm not sure if she's, yeah. Okay. I think I'll move on then. I see a hand that's raised here. Samrat, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Thank you very much. It's directed to Meeta Kapoor. You know, the writings from this place have always actually been the meeting ground of the mainstream and the frontier. Having said that, we like to identify ourselves as, you know, frontier people. For the soil we stand is actually the confluence theater of civilizations. Now, there is a distinctive flavor of the frontier. So as a publisher, how do you see yourself? As an integrator of, you know, the reference point maybe in a bag of diversities, or, you know, that of a new genre maybe, you know, the frontier way of thinking and doing things and writing, you know, your take on that.
Well, you've asked me a very difficult question. One, I'm not a publisher. I'm a literary agent. I wish I had the resources to be a publisher. I'd probably take every book that's coming out of Northeast and publish it, frankly. But as a literary agent, if I get submissions from the Northeast, I actually sit up. So if you're looking at diversity, I'm all for it. If you're looking for a voice from the frontier is what you are defining yourself as, I think anything and everything, there is so much immense talent in the east of our country that anything that's coming out is going to be looked at with respect. Yes, we do get limited with certain genres not selling, because as an agent, if I take on something, then I can't face failure. I've committed myself to a writer that, okay, I'm representing you. That means I have the responsibility to find a publishing house for your work. Now, I need to think multiple times before I take on that responsibility and commit myself to somebody's creativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot misuse that. I cannot keep you anxious and waiting. So even if I love the writing, but I know that the market is not ready for it, or publishers are not looking for such a thing right now, I will honestly, bluntly tell that writer that, you know what, can you just hang in there? I don't think I can take you on because of these reasons. And that's how I work. I put it out there on the table.
Right.
So, because you see, I'm dealing with somebody's creativity, right? I may not personally like that writing or like that writing. That's immaterial. Point is, you as a person, as a writer, have created something, and that needs to be respected. So with that in mind, I always write back saying, these are the reasons why I can take you on, and these are the reasons why I can't take you on. So whether it's, for me, it's about falling in love with the work. For me, it's about being able to imagine it selling on a bookstore's shelf. That's where I want to see the book eventually, right? But you can't just hard sell yourself as an agent and say, they go and we'll see what happens. No, we'll see. Failure is not an option. And in fact, the first few authors I had, I represented Kinfam for his poetry many years back.
Yes.
And we got him published through HarperCollins.
Yes.
And right now, Kinfam has come out with a very major tome called Funeral Nights. Westland has just published it. It's fantastic. It's a beautifully researched body of work. And I've read that book only recently. So it's not that people are not picking up diverse voices. Publishers are looking out for diverse voices, and that's a very heartening trend that we are seeing. And it's this trend has been on for a few years, and it's more focused now, in spite of the pandemic also. and in spite of the number crunching that I've been talking about. But yeah, I think I don't know if I've really answered you sufficiently, but I've tried.
To a large extent. Thank you very much.
Elika, I
yeah.
just like to butt in out here.
Sure.
Ms. Kapoor, after this New Frontiers online, which we have launched, like last month and all, I've been getting, calls from, because it was in PDF and it can be sent anywhere and everywhere. And because of that, I've been getting calls from Maharashtra, Bangalore and that sort of a thing from universities. Because I believe that that Northeast literature as a genre has been established, particularly in the academic circle particularly. And people were asking me that, do you have any of your publications as far as your earlier publications of New Frontier or on Northeast literature? What I just wanted to ask you as a literary agent, have you ever gone for that? I mean, as in particularly anybody is showing interest or you're wanting, or are you aware that there is a particular genre?
I would like to look at the world of literature as one whole being. And I do realize that Northeastern literature needs to really, really be acclaimed and recognized and be integrated fully, wholly, genuinely into mainstream publishing. Yes, of course, we are aware of this, if you're putting it in quotation marks, 100%. And as I also have a lot of respect for the kind of work that's coming out of the Northeast. And it's not just the printed word or the word in a form of a book. I've also I've worked with a few people from the textile field, and even your textiles have such fantastic stories woven into them. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of untapped talent which needs to be out there. And I'm just going to repeat myself and say it, I'm happy to help in any manner. Even for Juliana, who's archiving songs, I think she's doing a tremendous job. Or she's looking at the craft of a particular tribe and she's archiving that and researching and re-researching. And I like the way she thinks. I think each one of you are so accomplished and it should be out there, 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mitra Fukan, ma'am, if you would like to unmute yourself. Can you unmute your microphone? We can't seem to hear you. I think she was unmuted earlier.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. So while we're waiting for Mitra to just join, I think there is a question, not a question, more or less. Oh, yes, there's a question. So there's a question from Sokong, and the question is about prevailing a charge. Sorry. I think Rashmi's already answered that. Is that?
No, I just wanted to tell you, Mitra Baidu is back in.
Oh.
Her audio is all right now.
Yes.
She can talk. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take that question in a bit. Mitra, yeah.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I keep going, vanishing, coming on and off, because I'm actually outside the house. So anyway, but it's been wonderful listening to all of you. Mita, of course, sharing her valuable insights and all the experience, and Bijoya. What I wanted to say is that this idea of a publishing house and a kind of a bridge between those larger publishing houses and ours, I think we can go with, perhaps if everybody agrees, with one of our Guwahati publishers who are very, very experienced, and they do a wonderful job with the Assamese literature. And I think also Boro literature, they're very good. But of course, their reach is much less because it's basically 1 or 2 languages that they're dealing with. So if the forum can act as a bridge between these, local publishing houses, and I know there are several in Nagaland as well. Manipur, of course, has so many very good, and I'm sure there are others also. We can talk about that. So if instead of, starting from scratch, perhaps we can get the local publishers to also do this, and then we can kind of be, as I said, a bridge between these publishers and the ones who have a larger reach. That was just what I wanted to say. And of course, getting to the publishers in outside this region is tough. It's not easy. But I think gradually it's happening. It's opening up, and in large part because of people like Nita, who have done such wonderful work. She has placed Robin's work, which is, that's a gift to the world, I think, and so many others. So that's all I wanted to say, and I have learned a lot. Thank you so much.
We would have loved to see your beautiful face, Mitraba. You didn't put on your video,
Wait. No, I know. The audio was difficult enough. Video will be impossible. I'm trying. It's not happening. Anyway, another time.
Thank you, Mitra. Any thoughts on that, Mita?
I think what she's saying is a very practical thing to do. It's actually a very, very pragmatic observation that Mitra has made. Should start work in that direction.
And there seems to be a lot of work cut out for NEWF as well, because there's a question that I wanted to take earlier from Takong. NEWF being the bridge for getting works edited. So that's your work cut out for you, Dipanjal. I think there's quite a few things that we have to have in our next meeting.
Actually, what I've done, I've already lined up some of my editors, like one team of it. In fact, from Tripura, Mr. Arindam Nath had, done it. From Assam also, Abhijit Prabha and all, a few of them are already available. So what I'm trying to structure it in such a way that we have some editors there who can, help, of course, for a particular cost, and they were charging very reasonably, and they did a wonderful job, basically. Only 2-3 of it. But let's see, we got a long way to go, but the journey has started, rather. Let's see.
Right. So an hour and a half, I think we have been discussing quite a lot. We have looked at a variety of things. We have discussed, the different things from pen to print. And it's been really wonderful to hear about this broad spectrums from pen to print, especially from Mita. Your enormous contribution to the field of literary consultancy is truly exceptional and inspirational. And we at NEWF are sincerely grateful for the insights that you have shared with us this evening and for your support. We're also grateful to Bijoya, Juliana, and Gumlat for being part of this session. Our hope is that these partnerships will continue to grow and our community continues to inspire many more. So I guess this brings us to the close of our session this evening. It's been wonderful having you all here. Until next time, thank you everyone for joining us. And
thank you, Elika. Thank you, Ms. Kapoor. We cannot even thank you enough for coming over there, because as a secretary of the forum, we have been. I've been talking to a lot of people from the 8 states, and this particular problem of reaching out to literary agents and publications and so forth. This was going on for quite some time. So I thought, who better than one of the best literary agents in India. Should hear it from them, and basically with this interaction, I hope that instead of, losing hope, that people will be the aspiring writers, authors and poets. At least they would be, more, heartened. They would be more resolved rather to, carry on, do it properly. And thank you, Ms. Kapoor, once again, we hope for a long, fruitful, relation, this thing. And so that we can even get a help from you in the future. I thank our other panelists, like Sevan, thank you so much. You were there. Gumlat, you're always full of support, thank you so much. Juliana, thank you so much for coming in out there. I think we can end this meeting,
I'd just like to thank you
Yes.
for everything. It's just been so humbling and so much of a learning experience for me. So thank you for this opportunity to meet such lovely people.
I need to thank Meeta personally. She has been so very warm, and for every mail and every message that I've sent to her, she had been very quick to respond, and she had been very quick to oblige to my request of coming in. I just couldn't help but thank you, though you have been thanked by the secretary, the moderator. But yes, Meeta, from me, from my personal side, thank you so very much. And yes, I would like a peek of Zoe, please, sometime maybe. If she's around.
Not around. She's gone somewhere.
So,
My husband is
Okay.
home. She's following him.
Okay. Thank you so much, Meeta. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much.
everyone.
So
Bye-bye.
ending
Thank
it,
you, everyone. Good night.
in the 3.
Thank you, Elika,
2,
for moderating it so expertly.
Oh, thanks.